Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Speak English Together. I'm Katie, and with me, as always, is Tyler.
Hi, everyone. Great to see you again.
Today, we have a very useful and important lesson. We're going to talk about how to use the word would in English. Many learners find would confusing because it has so many different uses. In this episode, Tyler and I will explain everything step by step using real, natural examples so you can understand and start using would confidently in your daily conversations.
Yes, would is one of those small words that native speakers use all the time without even thinking about it. But for English learners, it can feel tricky. Don't worry. We're going to break it down into the most common situations. By the end of this episode, you'll have a much clearer idea of when and how to use would correctly.
Let's start with one of the most important uses, talking about imaginary or hypothetical situations. This is often called the second conditional. We use would when we imagine something that is not real or not very likely to happen.
For example, I could say, if I had more free time, I would learn how to play the guitar. This sentence means that right now, I don't have much free time, but I'm imagining what I would do if I did have more time.
Exactly. Here's another common example. If I won a lot of money, I would travel around the world. Tyler is imagining winning money, something that probably won't happen, but it's fun to think about. Notice how we use would plus the base verb, would travel, after the imaginary condition.
You can also use this structure to give advice. For instance, if I were you, I would take that job offer. This is a polite way of saying you should take that job. We often say if I were you instead of if I was you. That's the correct grammar, although many native speakers use was in casual conversations.
Here are a few more useful examples. If it rained tomorrow, we would stay at home and watch movies. If I didn't have to work, I would sleep until noon every day. If she studied harder, she would pass the exam easily.
You can see the pattern. If plus past simple, would plus base verb. This structure helps us talk about situations that are unreal or hypothetical. It's very common in everyday English when people are dreaming, giving advice, or thinking about what-if scenarios.
Now, let's move to another very important use, making polite requests. Native speakers prefer using would instead of can or will because it sounds softer and more polite.
For example, instead of saying, "Can you open the window?" which can sound a bit direct or demanding, we usually say, "Would you open the window, please?" This sounds much more polite and natural.
Another very common polite expression is, would you mind? This is a gentle way to ask someone to do something. Listen to these examples. Would you mind closing the door? It's a bit noisy outside. Would you mind passing me the salt, please? Would you mind waiting here for a few minutes?
You can also add "at all" to make it even softer. Would you mind waiting a little longer? I won't be long at all. Using would in requests helps you sound respectful and well-mannered, especially when talking to people you don't know very well or in formal situations.
Would is also commonly used to make offers and invitations. These are warm and friendly ways to speak.
For offers, we say things like, "Would you like some coffee or tea? Would you like me to help you carry those bags? Would you like a ride home?"
And for invitations, would you like to come to dinner at my place this weekend? Would you like to join us for a movie tonight? Would you like to go for a walk after work?
Notice that "would you like" sounds much more polite than just "do you want." It's one of the reasons native speakers use would so often in social situations.
There's one more important use we want to cover in this part, talking about past habits. When we want to describe actions or behaviors that happened regularly in the past, we can use would.
For example, when I was a child, I would play outside every evening until it got dark. This means it was my regular habit when I was young.
Another good example, my grandfather would always tell us stories before bedtime. Or every summer we would visit my grandparents at the lake.
Using would this way is similar to used to, but would is often used for repeated actions and gives a warmer, more nostalgic feeling.
So, in this first part, we've looked at 4 important uses of would: hypothetical or imaginary situations, second conditional, polite requests, offers and invitations, past habits.
These are some of the most frequent ways you will hear and use would in real, everyday English conversations.
Let's continue our lesson on the many uses of would. We've already covered hypothetical situations, polite requests, offers, invitations, and past habits. Now we'll look at some more useful and common ways to use would in everyday English.
One very popular expression is would rather. We use would rather when we want to say we prefer one thing over another. It's a natural and polite way to express preference.
For example, you can say, I would rather stay home tonight than go out. This means you prefer staying home. Here's another one. She would rather walk to work than take the bus.
You can also use it to ask about someone's preference. Would you rather have coffee or tea? Or would you rather watch a movie or go for a walk? Notice how would rather is followed by the base form of the verb.
There's also a similar expression, would prefer. It works almost the same way. For example, I would prefer to eat at home tonight, or they would prefer not to drive in heavy traffic.
You can make it more complete by saying, I would prefer to stay home rather than go to the party. Both would rather and would prefer are very common when making choices or expressing what you like better.
Now let's talk about using would for the future in the past. This sounds a bit complicated, but it's actually quite simple and useful. We use would when we talk about something that was planned or expected in the past, but we're looking back at it now.
For example, imagine yesterday I said, I will call you tomorrow. Today, when I tell the story, I say, I told her I would call her today. So, would call is the future in the past.
Here are more examples. He said he would come to the meeting. In the past, he promised to come. She told me she would finish the report by Friday. I thought it would rain, but the weather turned out nice.
This use is very common in reported speech when we report what someone said earlier. Instead of will, we change it to would when the reporting verb is in the past tense.
Another helpful use is making polite refusals or soft answers. Native speakers often use would to politely say no without sounding rude.
For example, if someone invites you to a party but you can't go, you can say, I would love to come, but I have to work late. Or, I would join you, but I already made other plans.
This is much softer than just saying, no, I can't. It shows that you appreciate the invitation even if you can't accept it. Other examples, I would help you, but I'm really busy right now. I would buy it, but it's a bit too expensive for me.
You can also use would to talk about willingness in the past. For instance, when I was younger, I would stay up all night studying. This shows I was willing to do it back then.
Now let's look at would in questions about the past. We sometimes use it to ask about someone's past behavior or habits in a gentle way. For example, would you often visit your grandparents when you were a child? Or, as a student, would you study late into the night?
Also common is the structure I wish plus would. We use this when we want something to happen or when we are annoyed about a situation. Examples, I wish it would stop raining. I want the rain to stop. I wish you would call me more often. I wish you would listen to me.
This expression is very useful for expressing hopes or mild complaints in a natural way.
We also use would in conditional offers or promises. For example, if you help me with this, I would really appreciate it. Or in more formal situations, I would be grateful if you could send me the information.
In customer service or polite business English, you'll hear, we would like to thank you for your patience. I would be happy to assist you with that.
So in this part, we've covered several more important uses: would rather and would prefer for expressing choices, would for future in the past and reported speech, polite refusals, I wish plus would, and conditional offers.
As you can see, the word would is incredibly flexible. The more you listen to real conversations, the more naturally you'll start using it yourself. Let's continue with even more practical ways to use would in real English conversations. We've already covered many important uses, but there are still a few common situations where would appears naturally.
One very useful structure is would have for talking about unreal situations in the past. This is often called the third conditional. We use it when we imagine what could have happened but didn't actually happen.
For example, if I had studied harder, I would have passed the exam. This means I didn't study hard enough, so I didn't pass. We're looking back and imagining a different result.
Here are more everyday examples. If I had known you were coming, I would have prepared dinner. If she had left earlier, she would have caught the train. If we had taken a taxi, we would have arrived on time.
You can also use it to express regret or relief. I would have called you, but my phone died. We would have gone to the party, but we were too tired.
Another common use is in polite suggestions or advice. Instead of giving direct commands, native speakers often soften their words with would. For example, you would feel better if you got more sleep, or it would be a good idea to leave early to avoid traffic.
In professional or formal situations, you'll hear phrases like, "It would be better if we rescheduled the meeting." "I would recommend checking the website for the latest information."
Would is also frequently used when describing typical behavior or characteristics. For instance, he would always forget his keys. It was typical of him. Kids would sometimes complain about eating vegetables.
Now let's look at how would appears in indirect or reported questions. Direct question, "Will you come tomorrow?" Reported, "She asked if I would come the next day."
More examples. He wanted to know if we would help him. I asked her if she would be free this weekend.
This change from will to would is very important when reporting what someone asked in the past.
Another everyday use is expressing opinions more politely. Instead of saying, I think this is better, you can say, I would say this restaurant is the best one in town. Or, in my opinion, I would choose the blue one.
You can also use would to talk about willingness in different situations. "I would never do something like that. I'm not willing." "She would do anything to help her friends."
In storytelling or describing past events, would helps make the story more vivid. Every time we visited, my uncle would tell the same jokes. Back in college, we would stay up late talking about our dreams.
Finally, there's one more common pattern, would like to have done, for past wishes. For example, "I would like to have learned piano when I was younger." This shows regret about something you didn't do in the past.
As you can see, would is truly one of the most versatile words in English. It helps us talk about imaginary situations, make polite requests, express preferences, report what people said, talk about the past, and soften our language.
The best way to master would is to listen to real conversations and practice using these structures yourself. Start with simple sentences and gradually make them longer.
Here's a quick review of the main uses we covered across all three parts. Hypothetical situations, if I had/I would, polite requests and would you mind, offers and invitations/would you like, past habits/I would play, preferences/I would rather/I would prefer, future in the past and reported speech, polite refusals, I would love to, but, unreal past situations/would have, polite suggestions/opinions.
Try to notice would when you watch movies, listen to podcasts, or talk with native speakers. The more you pay attention, the more natural it will feel.
Thanks for joining us for this complete lesson on how to use would in English. We hope these real examples and explanations have made it much clearer for you.
If you have any questions about would or favorite examples you want to share, write them in the comments below. We read every comment.
Don't forget to like the video if it helped you, subscribe to Speak English Together for more practical English lessons, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new episode.
Keep practicing these natural expressions every day. Your English will keep improving. See you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye!